Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about The Rewind Files by Claire Willett. So this is a standalone book. This is literally the only book this author has written. And I don't know if there are plans to write more in this series or not. The book came out a few years ago. And as far as I can tell, there's nothing indicating that there's going to be more. And the book definitely has like a definitive end to it. So, I think this is I think this is all there's going to be. So if you like it, like I did, this is it. This is all there is. The plot of this book is it's set in the year 2112. So roughly 100 years in the future. And at some point, someone has discovered how to time travel. And of course, all of the major powers jump on this, trying to undo major wrongs in their history. So like Germany tries to go back and undo the Holocaust, and America goes back and tries to undo slavery, etc., etc. Well, the thing is that it basically completely destroys time. The timeline happens the way it's supposed to happen, and if you mess with that, it majorly freaks out the timeline, which tries to correct itself and does very wonky things trying to correct itself. So basically now there's this like UN FBI thing of people who are time travel agents who register when there's some sort of blip on the natural timeline, and they go back there and they kind of nudge it back into where it's supposed to be, and however that ends up looking. So that's the setup. And the book begins with the main character basically figuring out that World War III, which starts in like 1982 or something like that, was never supposed to happen. It is something that was created by a time traveler and has been actively covered up ever since it was created. And they don't know who created it or why or how they're covering it up. So she's sent back to 1972, the main character, because that's where the vibrations start. That's where the anomaly that kicks off World War III happening in the 80s is during 1972. They can see that that's the starting point of what created it, but they're still not sure like what it was that created it or why. So she's sent back with basically like a couple of weeks to get acclimated and like insert herself and everything. And then has like a 2-day period where they're like, we can pin down the anomaly to this amount of time. So she goes back in time to try and figure this out. And basically all hell breaks loose. And so the plot of the book is her uncovering who the mole is and trying to stop World War III from happening. In World War III, Washington, D.C. is completely leveled, like across the board. The Capitol building, all of the monuments, the White House, everything gone. And 56 million people end up dying. Yeah, China bombs us, and then we bomb China and basically annihilate it. So there's like 20 million U.S. citizens who are killed, and like 36 million Chinese citizens who are killed, something like that. So she's trying to stop this war that ends up killing 50 some odd million people between the two countries. And so no pressure or anything, right? It's her. She's not a field agent. She's a desk jockey. But they're basically like, you're the only person we trust because you're the only person who's ever pointed this out to us. So clearly you're not the person doing this. Plus it's, we think, been going on longer than you've been alive. So you're the only person that we comfortably feel like could do this, or feel comfortable that you're not the traitor sending you in. And yeah, so I don't want to say any more because I don't want to give any of the book away, but it is it was a very fun read. Personally, I loved it. Personally, the pacing of this is the first chapter is kind of hard to get through because it's a lot of kind of technical mumbo jumbo explaining how the timeline works and all of this stuff. And it's all made up and doesn't make any sense. And so I had originally read about this and thought, well, that's interesting. Downloaded it's not available at any library. And I wasn't willing to commit to purchasing the $8 book until I had read a sample on Amazon. So I had downloaded the sample, which is only like 23 pages or something. And it took me like 3 tries to get through the sample because the first 20 pages are a little dry. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy this book. I feel fairly certain that this is something I'm going to enjoy. And I'm so glad I did. But I'm just warning you, the pacing of this is actually really breakneck. It's a very fast-paced book, except the first 20 pages, which is unfortunate because if you were to just randomly pick this up, you'd never know. So yeah, the first 20 pages, a little hard to get through. After that, there is something going on almost the entire time. I mean, literally, I don't want to give anything away, but like stuff, it's a poop tornado from literally the moment she steps through the time anomaly into 1972 or the time stream or whatever. And it kind of continues on that way where like stuff is going down through the entire book and you don't know who you can trust. You don't know who's a good guy. You don't know who's a bad guy, which keeps the book interesting because the entire time you're like, well, that person said that. Interesting. Is that going to be important? Does that mean that they're the bad guy? And so breakneck pacing, super engrossing book. The book is somewhat densely written because the author is trying to kind of explain how time travel works and also is trying to describe this alternative 1972. And so there's a decent amount of world building. However, she does it in a way that doesn't make the book feel, well, except for the first 20 pages. She does it in a way that doesn't make the book feel dry or dense or hard to get through. You know, it's not, at no point are you like reading a song in Lord of the Rings that's 32 pages long and doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it's very fast paced. I wrote it's 2/3 densely written. Meaning that it's only 2/3 of the way to being a densely written book. Yeah. This has a very convoluted timeline or a plot line. You have stuff that's going on in 2112. You have stuff that's going on in 1972. And then there are some jumps to other time points as well. And they all impact one another. So even though it's consistently told from one point of view, it's happening in all these different timelines, or not timelines, but time points. And it's convoluted in the fact that it's complex and intriguing, not convoluted as in like doesn't make sense. But I thought that was such a unique thing to do. I've never, even in like the Outlander books, there's stuff going on in a couple of different times, but they don't have any impact on one another, not really. And, you know, they're not happening concurrently. She's either in what's current for her, which is like the 30s or something like that, or she's back in, you know, the time of the Scottish Highlands, whatever. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've read the Outlander book, so I don't remember exactly when it's supposed to take place. But, you know, with this, they're hopping around to all these different times all over the place. And it's not confusing. At no point was I like, wait, I can't, where are we now? But it adds a new element to a book that I've never really seen before. So I thought that was great. The main character is... So the characters are developed over time. Mostly the only character that's developed is the main character. Everyone else is just kind of like set dressing for her. You do get a little bit more insight into a couple of people, but mostly they just arrive and they're there. There's no real development for them. She grows as a person throughout the book, which is funny because, I mean, that only takes place over the course of like 3 weeks or something. But she starts off not believing in herself, not really understanding why she would have been picked for this assignment, not feeling like she can do it. And by the end, she really grows into herself and acknowledges the legacy that she's stepping into. And instead of feeling overshadowed by it, kind of accepts that and makes it her own. And that was really fun to watch happen. So while character development is not the focus of this book at all, this is definitely plot driven, I felt like there was some pretty cool character development that happened throughout the book for the main character. Again, nobody else has any character development at all. So if character development is your thing, this is not for you. This is all about the stuff happening, not about the people it's happening to. She is a very eccentric character. She starts off as a caricature where she's, described as like a nerd, basically. She has no people skills. She is only able to interact with computers, but she's like a super math genius. And, that's basically it. That's basically all they tell you about her, is that she's really good at math and is terrible, terrible with people. And as the book progresses, you really get an actual feel for her personality. And she actually learns who she is and grows more of a personality, because at first she's there's not much to her. And so, but she's very eccentric. I mean, I guess you would have to be a time-traveling Jedi, basically. But so the storyline for this book is very, very plot-driven. This is all about the espionage plot through time, basically. I mean, she's being chased by the spy. She's trying to find the spy. They're going through time, all kinds of stuff. And so there's a lot of action. There's a lot of kind of sleuthing that goes on. There's a lot of kind of aha moments. And I love those. Maybe I'm a sucker for it, but I just feel like if I am not able to figure out what's going on and the main character is able to figure it out before I can, I love that, because it means that I was surprised. The book kept me in suspense the entire time. Now, sometimes it happens where that's so much of a stretch that you're just like, what? But this one, I didn't feel like that was the case with this one. The main character is extremely smart, and she figured stuff out that nobody else put together. And then they bring in a couple of other people who also connect some dots. And I loved it. I literally, until the very, they figured it out and they found the person, I had no idea who was behind it all. And for a plot-driven book, that's what you want. You want the plot to make sense and be intriguing all the way through. Otherwise, what is the point? The frame of this book is mostly set in Washington, D.C. in 1972, which was kind of fun to watch. This progressive woman from 2112 have to squeeze her boobs into cone-shaped bras, and wear pantyhose and be deferential to men as they leered at her. And she was just like, what is wrong with this time? So there's some humor from that, and then also you have just the fun historical details of being in 1972. I was obviously not around for 1972. That was 11 years before I was born, but it's still early enough in our, like, recent enough in our history that I can picture what the fashion looked like and what the cars look like, and so it's fun for it to be history for her, while still near enough to have almost happened to me. So I thought that was fun. So that's the frame of the book. Most of it happens there. The tone is, you've got this detailed background that gives you the whole time, while it's cool to see the 1972, it also gives you the sense of foreboding, because the entire time she's looking at all of these people thinking they are all going to be dead in 10 years if I cannot figure out and stop this war. So you have this sense of foreboding and suspense, and also there's this political intrigue because the whole thing revolves around the Nixon re-election. And so it's also politically tied, and politically tied without at all dealing with politics, if that makes sense. Like, in no way does the author take any sort of a stance on politics. So I thought that was really, really cleverly done. Now, this one, I did not check to see if it was available on Audible, but it is a, I don't know if independently published is actually the right term, but it was published by Axiomatic Publishing, which, including this book, has only published 5 books. And this book was published the year that they were established. So it's a little hard to come by. Barnes & Noble had a hard copy of it, and Amazon had a hard copy and also a Kindle version. And I bought the Kindle version because it was just the cheapest way to get it. I will say, with this being independently published, the reason I know this is because as I was reading it, I was like, this kind of feels like it was independently published. So I went and I checked, and it's more of an issue at the beginning. I feel like it wasn't edited very well. I caught quite a few spelling or grammar errors where, like, a word was missing, or maybe a word was in twice or something like that sort of thing. You will catch that in books every once in a while, but this was, I mean, not enough to be an issue, but enough for me to be like, this kind of feels independently published. So if that's something that's really going to bother you, I'm sorry, I still feel like this book is worth reading if this is your thing. I mean, obviously, if this is not your thing, then don't read it anyway. But it was, like I said, it was more of an issue at the beginning, and then not so much. I don't know if the author, like, kind of got into a groove or whatever, but it felt a little bit rough at the beginning. So just a warning in case that's something that's really going to bother you. But it bothered me at first, and then I don't know if I just got used to it or if the author kind of got better at writing. I mean, not better, but the story felt more smoothly written, if that makes sense. So there you go. Anyway, that was the Rewind Files by Claire Willett. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content, make sure to subscribe before you leave. And until next time, happy reading. It is densely written because... Oh, Dogtail. He is upset that I touched his tail. Jeez, cats. The cats are fighting. The dog is all excited about the cats fighting. This book is very plot driven. This is... What are you doing? Oh, hi. Oh, hi. What are you sniffing at? dinosaurs? Can you show everyone your face? Nope. Under the table. What are you doing? Whew.